So I thought these were very important statistics. Uh, Women perform 2/3 of the world's work. They earn 1/10 of the world's income, but 2/3 of the world's illiterate are women, and they own less than 1/100th of world's property. So a very skewed global situation we have there. I speak to you on a day, just day before yesterday, there was a very unfortunate incident which grabbed media attention and which has really caused a lot of agony to a lot of us across the country and perhaps across the world also. And we are indeed shameful about that incident that has happened. And especially in our country where women are really revered, they are worshipped. We have lots of goddesses in the names of Mahalakshmi, Mahakali, and India itself is a feminine word. We refer to the country as Mother India. So women have been playing a very important role. We have the patriarchal society in most of the parts of the country, but we also have the matriarchal society. Even otherwise, women play a very important role in decision making, in families, in the education of their children, in chalking out the future of their children. So maybe it's a country of contrasts, I would like to say. So we have real contrasting social and economic situations in this country. To address a lot of problems that are facing us, I was asked to talk on the women issues and the legislations, and in practice what exactly is the situation that is prevailing. So I'll just briefly touch on the legislations because I won't go into the details. Any of you are interested, we have all the ministries have their websites, including the Ministry of Women and Child Development. So all the detailed provisions will be available on the government websites of both Government of India as well as Andhra Pradesh portal. So you can access all the details there. We have the Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act, which was amended, and the persons who live off prostitution, who abet prostitution, are liable for a lot of punishments, and they are very stringent. No person can live on the earnings on prostitution. No person can keep a brothel or allow premises to be used as brothel. They cannot procure, induce, or take persons. And all these are liable for punishments ranging from 1 to 5 years and 2,000 rupees fine. Whoever procures, induces is liable for rigorous imprisonment for 3 to 7 years and also with fine of 2,000. We can even order closure of brothel and eviction of offenders for 1 year. In case a brothel is found with a minor child, it can be closed for even up to 3 years. So, and Andhra Pradesh is supposed to have implemented all this legislation very effectively. In fact, it is looked up as a model state in the whole country. And the convictions that have taken place in Andhra Pradesh are perhaps the highest in the country also. We have the Dowry Prohibition Act. This continues to be a great social concern for us, under which, taking or giving of dowry has been banned. It is punishable with 6 months to 2 years. And any agreement for giving or taking dowry is also treated as a void document. We have the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, under which a child who's defined as one who's up to 14 years is banned from working, and anyone employing children is punishable with 1 year or fine of 10,000 or 10 to 20,000 or both. This has also been implemented very effectively in Andhra Pradesh. A large number of children have been released from labor, and the employers have been convicted. Similarly, all marriages are supposed to be registered. We've been a little weak on the implementation of this statute. Somehow it is not happening the way we would like to happen. All marriages are to be registered, and you will know the benefits that accrue from a registered marriage. Tomorrow, if there's any dispute, a registered marriage certainly will devolve a lot of benefits, particularly to the women. We have the Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Amendment Act. You might have heard of it. A lot of girl-child discrimination. People don't prefer daughters. Although we've reached a situation in states like Haryana where they are importing brides from other southern states like Kerala and even from Andhra Pradesh, because the sex ratio is it becomes so skewed there. So it's unfortunate that you are realizing this after you have reached that kind of a situation. But still, in southern states, the girl-child discrimination continues, particularly at a little higher level in the south and some of the northern states. Therefore, this enactment was brought out in 2002 because people were resorting to, feticide on whenever they discovered the sex of the fetus as being female, they were resorting to feticide, and therefore this enactment was brought out, which gives a punishment up to 3 years and a fine of 10,000. Then a lot of women have been facing domestic violence, which made the government to bring out the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. The husband, even the immediate family members, if they are held to have physically abused or even verbal or emotional abuse, is taken cognizance of under this act. And a lot of NGO participation is there. They are the service providers. We have recognized NGOs in all the districts all over the country, in fact, where they are the service providers. They help in drafting the report, in counseling the women who come with these complaints. They help in filing the case, in seeing that the case is pursued in the court. So this is one act where the NGOs are participating in a very big way. And we have a very, very limited government staff implementing this act. And the NGO participation has proved to be very, very successful in this act. In Andhra Pradesh, for instance, there are about 24,000 petitions which have been filed, of which 5,000 have been compromised. The effort of the officers, the protection officers, is normally to bring about a compromise, and if still it's a situation where they can't proceed with a compromise, then a report is filed, and it's the special courts have been notified in all the districts which take up these cases, and special days have been notified. In some districts it is a Friday or it's a Monday in some districts when these cases are taken up, because the same officer has to go to a lot of courts in the district. And interim orders, interim relief is given by, saying that interim on a kind of maintenance of a certain amount be given to the wife pending disposal of the case, or the wife may be allowed to stay in the house or in so-and-so rooms or in so-and-so floor pending outcome of the case. So a lot of interim orders are also issued in this case wherever the victims desire so. We have the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, and any girl who has not completed 18 years of age, boy who has not completed 21 years of age come under the ambit of a child, and any marriage which is contracted, even people who attend such marriages are liable for action. Not only those who perform the marriages, but those who attend the marriages also. So we've taken up a lot of campaign to see that this has come down considerably now in the country. We have a number of other protective measures and entitlements. This is the Right to Education Act, which was recently promulgated in 2009. It came into force on 1/4/2010, under which every child is provided 8 years of elementary education, and it's compulsory education. Even private schools are required to earmark 25% of their intake at the entry level for children who belong to poorer sections. It is being hailed as a very progressive piece of legislation, and we are now in the process of implementing the act. The rules have also been issued in Andhra Pradesh, and I think this will be a boon for a lot of children who were denied access to education. And as you are all aware, girl-child education is at a much lower level. The dropout rate is much higher among girls all over the country. And therefore this act hopefully will also sensitize the parents, because the school education committees are also supposed to play a very important role in sensitizing the local community, in ensuring that the girl child enrollment takes place and the dropout comes down or is prevented if possible. We have an important scheme called the Indira Kranti Patham. I think somebody from rural development would have addressed the participants, I think. Yeah, this is another very important initiative of the state government, and this was upscaled in other parts of the country, and Andhra Pradesh has been really, you might have seen the program during your visit to Mehboob Nagar and self-help groups.
They've also seen
you might have
that,
interacted with the self-help groups.
In Karimnagar.
Yeah, okay.
That also.
Yeah. So it's doing very well. The banks are coming forward to give funding to the SHGs without any inhibitions, and the total savings of the SHGs is over 40 crores, and they have a corpus of 58 crores, which is a huge amount, and almost 1 crore 15 lakh women are enrolled in the self-help groups all over the state. They had also, taken up a prohibition in a big way at one stage, going around, enforcing. Yeah, it became a major movement in Andhra Pradesh, but somehow it little petered out a little later. They have taken up a number of programs like the community managed sustainable agriculture development, employment generation, marketing kind of initiatives, social and human development programs like preschool education, the nutrition programs. They also have a pension cum insurance scheme. You might have had exposure to all these programs taken up by the SHGs. In Andhra Pradesh, the land title deeds for both the lands and house sites that are assigned to the families, the land title deeds are in the name of the woman of the house and not in the name of the man. We also have 33 1/3 reservation for women in jobs since 1996, and Andhra Pradesh was among the first states to have introduced this. Under the Hindu Succession Amendment Act, Hindu daughters are entitled to equal inheritance rights along with their male siblings. Andhra Pradesh was in fact a pioneering state in this regard. I think Kerala and Andhra Pradesh were the first states to have given this kind of right entitlement to women. Way back in 1985. Government of India did it almost after 20 years. There are a number of schemes which are we receive supplementation from Government of India, where financial relief is given to women who are victims of atrocities like rape, kidnap, dowry harassment. Dowry deaths, they get 50,000. Kidnap, 20,000 is given to the family. Then for legal assistance to the family, 25,000 is given for dowry death cases. Then we also have a number of institutions which provide. We have state homes, service homes, Swadhar homes, Ujjwala homes, children homes, which provide institutional care, protection and empowerment to women through vocational training to both children and women. You might have heard of the Integrated Child Development Services Scheme, which is the largest human resource development program in the world, which reaches out to 1.83 crores women through various services, including immunization, health checkup, nutrition, and we are also trying to bring about a major behavioral change in various aspects. We have the Kishore Shakti Yojana, which provides skill upgradation and vocational training to adolescent girls. There's a girl child protection scheme under which, the girl, when she attains 18 years, provided she has received all the doses of immunization, she has completed 10th class, and she remains unmarried till the age of 18. If there's one girl, she gets 1 lakh when she crosses 18. If there are 2 girls, they get 30,000 each. So when they cross 18. So this is a program in Andhra Pradesh. There are a number of protective, progressive legislations, number of programs, but we still continue to suffer major concerns: poverty, lack of access to education, coupled with high dropout rate, and to opportunities, lack of access to opportunities for development. We still have practices such as child marriages, child labor, female feticide, infanticide, discrimination against girl child and widows, adverse sex ratio, low health status. The maternal mortality rate is at a high 175 per 100,000 births in India. We have anemic levels of 55 to 65% among women. As compared to men, it is very high. And wide prevalence of anemia, as I said, continues to plague the country. One of the major issues which have hampered the development, effective implementation of the programs are lack of coordination. I don't know whether you also have these issues back home, but in India, at least in all the states, we find that this is one of the impeding factors, you know. There are a number of departments which do women-based programs, women development programs. But the kind of effective linkages, effective coordination that is required is sometimes wanting. I was in charge of women and child development for some time, so we established a society for protection and empowerment of women and children in Andhra Pradesh, where all the secretaries of health, labor, education, rural development, home department, all of them come together to address specific identified issues. So that was a very good arrangement, but then the problem is you have to have at the top level a very committed bureaucrat, and that always does not happen. So, you know, and that has its own negative effects on the implementation of such arrangements. Then we need to have better partnership between government, NGOs and other stakeholders. I had mentioned about the Domestic Violence Act, where you know, NGOs are playing an important role. There's need to bring in a lot more partnership in implementation of the programs. You know, the kind of volunteerism that you are promoting now through Bharat Nirman program from APAD. I think if we can also reach out to NGOs to rope them in, perhaps we'll be much more effective. They also receive a lot of funding from abroad, so if we can also put in all our resources, maybe we can be very effective on that. There's an urgent need for an enlightened, committed and effective political and administrative leadership. Unless this comes about, any number of legislations, any number of programs that we may have will just peter down and fritter down to nothing, unless you have this at various levels. And for this to happen at the lower levels, I think the top level political setup, the top level bureaucratic setup must be a real committed and you know, a dynamic, vibrant kind of leadership, giving that kind of a leadership at the top. I have found that you know, a lot of other reasons come in, and all kinds of officers who are not suited for the posts are posted in certain places, and the kind of damage that is done to the people and to the stakeholders is really unimaginable. And of course, it's a different thing that some of them manage to give an impression that they are very efficient, they are very effective, and you know, they talk very well, and people, maybe politicians, political leaders get carried away or whatever, but they need to have their own information system by which they need to judge whether the bureaucrats are doing their job or not. We need to have a lot more accountability and lot more transparency in, you know, in the governance. Improper governance, I feel impacts the program implementation and implementation of the policies. The way forward, you know, we need to, like I said, have a committed bureaucracy, people who are committed to the job, people who are doing a good job at the right critical positions. Unless that is done, we will not be able to do anything. We need to also review policies and programs, whether they relate to the reality on ground. You know, we organized a program for orphans and destitutes to give them training in as constables. So physical training, you know, we went around all the districts, we wanted to select just orphans and destitutes to give them training as constables, because a massive recruitment of 16,000 constables was taking place in the state. But when our people went to the districts, we found that the physical parameters that had been prescribed was such that most of these girls got rejected. You know, on the height, most of them were underweight. And putting on weight, I think, is the easiest thing to do. So somebody sitting in the secretariat had prescribed these kind of physical parameters, you know. So I was in Women and Child Welfare Department. I immediately took it up with the police department, got them to send a proposal to Home Department, chased the matter with Home Department. Then I came to know that they had not sent it the way I wanted it, and the file had already gone to Law Department. So I spoke to the Secretary Law, and you know, there is in the brackets it is mentioned Principal Secretary Women Welfare, you know, that the proposal has been revised at that stage at you know, on our intervention, and the height was reduced from 157.5 centimeters to 152 centimeters, and the weight was got reduced from 47 kgs to 40 kgs. And I believe this really, you know, benefited a lot of women. You know, we had a Prime Minister called Lal Bahadur Shastri. I don't know if you remember. He was among the puniest of the persons, but he was one of the most effective Prime Ministers and a very dynamic Prime Minister. So, yeah, so height really doesn't make any difference. It's just the attitude and the capability, we thought. So this was a policy which was not related to the reality on ground. Somebody sitting in the secretariat, you know, it's only the rich people who have better access to nutrition will have better height, you know, better weight and all that. So these are we need to review these kind of things. You know, and another thing was all our tribal areas, the medical officers posts were they all used to be vacant, because doctors always prefer to go to the well-developed rural or urban areas. So there is reservation of 35% of seats for doing their PG. You know, after MBBS, they do their PG, post-graduation, MD. So what I was Secretary Health, so what we used to always ask for additional money. You work in tribal areas, you give them additional incentives, give them additional funding. You know, people will come if you give them additional money or additional allowances. So this was not happening because of, you know, the stringent financial conditions. So what I suggested was that a doctor who works for 2 years in tribal areas will get eligibility for PG admission. A doctor who works for 3 years in rural areas will get eligibility. But a doctor who works in urban areas will have to work for 4 years. So there was a mad rush to go to tribal areas because all the doctors wanted to do 2 years of their stint in the, you know, government and then come back for their PG admissions to pursue their post-graduation further studies. So these are very simple policy changes but which can make a lot of difference to the people concerned. Then we also find, you know, when we were studying in school, Professor Suryanarayana and I, we had something called moral education. So perhaps we are a little more moralistic than the present generation. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But the present generation doesn't do anything called moral education, you know. That subject was removed. So we've been saying that there's a need to reintroduce that subject.
Engineering does not have anything to do with arts.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's need to, yeah. So then there's a need to bring about that kind of attitudinal change to value the girl child, to respect a woman, and, you know, certain other social, you know, issues which are plaguing any country in the school curriculum itself. At that age itself, if we promote by making changes in the school curriculum, maybe we can have a generation, at least in the future, which will be more sensitive. Training and sensitization of all government staff and stakeholders, of course, is important. Then convergence between departments. I had mentioned this about, you know, the AP Society for Protection and Empowerment, which we started in Andhra Pradesh in 2008, and Government of India introduced subsequently a similar program called National Mission for Empowerment of Women. Then we need to promote accountability, I had already mentioned, among both bureaucrats and political leadership, including local bodies at various levels. So with this, I end.